Hello, audience. Welcome back to another one. And in this one, I want to take it straight to the point, straight to the issue, and straight to the solution. And I just want to bring attention, everyone's attention, whoever's listening. All those three fans of mine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway, what I want to talk about is a concept called holistic society, right? Right now, we live in a corrupt society because there's this there's this force, man. There's this drive for certain men to have a total control without um, without giving anything back in return. Like it's this force stems from fear, and this masculine solution to handle this is to have a complete and total control. And so then we're gonna have peace. No, what's gonna happen? We're gonna have tyranny. We're gonna have slavery. We're gonna have all these kind of things, and the few people at the top, they're gonna be at peace at the cost of everybody else. Um, but what happens with this type of structure, with this type of corrupt governance, is that it's mechanistic. It has no way to stop until it self-destructs. Okay, we know this. I mean, if we know anything about the basic principles of nature, you know that these structures don't back down. They're mechanistic. If you ever met a person who, even caught on a lie or a thievery, doubles down on his bullshit, you know what I'm talking about. They cannot be reasoned with. And I'm cutting all the bullshit on the kumbaya and going straight to the jugular. And you may think like, well, I'm just living my life. What am I gonna do? Like, how is this my concern? They're supposed to get their act together. They will never get their act together until everything is ruined. Do you understand? Therefore, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to know where your food's coming from, where your water's coming from, where your energy is coming from. It's your responsibility. And you have to start living life with this reality. They're not going to change. They're going to collapse everything. Do you understand? Like they do not have capacity to change. The only way that what we can do is to build another structure that is protected. And right now, what's protected is the private sector. Of course, in the private sector, there's apparently less people who have a lot of money, and obviously these are the same people who like have control of everything else, so they can live in the private sector without the same rules that apply everybody else, right? The private sector, here's the thing, they cannot attack the private sector because they cannot attack themselves. So this is why we have to grow the private sector. What does that mean? It means if you own your land privately, you can grow your food, your water, your energy, everything. With the technology that we have right now, if you take one extreme like Amish live or Mennonites, they have the natural principles right, but they are not using technology because they think that technology is the source of evil. It's not the technology source of evil, it's what's behind the technology source of evil. Has the technology taken over your mind, or you still have balls to run the technology? And if you use technology in this way, you can cut down your labor drastically. You can even have laborers looking after your garden, and you can finance them with having something to rent out and so on, right? This is a type of situation that we're in. So I just want to be a little bit more precise and what's going on. that thing, that code, that tyrannical code is going to keep on pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing. It doesn't have a stop button. Okay? So you have to let it run its course and at the same time build a new one. You have to start building now. You know, some people still think that some people in the government are going to make a change or whatever and all that stuff. They're not going to make a change, man. They're going to make an illusion of change, but they're not going to make a change. Everything is rotten to the core. So that what's rotten, it has to die. You know, every single empire that ever existed that was run on the corrupt principles, which is easy to do, right? Like, it's easy to corrupt the money and then they control the people and then become a warmonger, right? But it's much more difficult to run an honest economy and little by little create even your military much more powerful, much more stronger, but have no intention or the need to invade, because the consequence of the invasion happens because there's a corruption of value. Once you corrupt the value, you start invading other countries. It's just a disease. That's the way it works. Just like a virus spreads, it has to spread to sustain itself. Otherwise, it starts dying. Everything's based on these fundamental principles that are broken. It's most moronic, actually, way of living life. If, let's say, you came to this planet and now you need to figure out with everything that you have around you how to live on this planet, start from there. You know, start from there. Say, all right, I'm on this planet. You know, have a piece of land. What am I gonna do now? I need to use this piece of land to sustain my family, and then begin with that. And I'm not saying to be drastic and just completely, you know, cut yourself off and live in the woods. No, I'm just saying that build that as your base. So when the banks are, you know, closing your accounts, and when the corporate is not giving you water anymore, or the government's not allowing you to have your freedom, you have your place. You don't have to stress around about anything. So that's where you start from there. And so to summarize the whole thing and how to make a step, like if you're deep in the matrix, right? First of all, I want to say that there is a certain type of structure that exists in nature. For example, your mind, right? Your brain. Is there a master cell in your mind? Is there a master cell that's just like, I'm going to rule all the other cells? No, there is none. And somehow your brain works. There is no master cell. So therefore there shouldn't be a master, you know, organization or a boss at the top level. That's why I'm saying the cities and the metropolitan, intrinsically they are breeding grounds for corruption. It's just the matrix type of life, you know. But it's unnatural. But the other side of it is that there's a natural way of having a society, and then that has to be kept in the small villages, no more than 96 people. You know, I don't know where that number, but anyway, they did the research because if you increase the population of the town higher than that, you need the police. But if you keep it small, everybody lives in a very harmonious way. So you have to keep a cell, right? One village, one unit, sustainable, and then getting to the details of it, you have to incorporate all sorts of structures that already exist, like ideologies, you know, communism, socialism, capitalism, fascism, and all these other isms into one holism, because they all have their place. For example, if you have your house, your household, and you grow your food and for your family to sustain yourself, that's communism, because everybody shares it, right? That's communism. But it can't go outside your household. If you're gonna try to keep the communism in wider, you know, area, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. It's not natural. Okay. But now you have your household. Now you have your neighbor. Same household, right? And then you can connect. Then it becomes a socialism, right? So if you're down on the luck, so to speak, or you need help, your neighbor is out there to help you out. Or if you have too much apples and they have too much pears, you just trade, right? Not because you know, not because you're trying to make a profit. It's just because you have too much of that shit and they have too much of that shit. So you just naturally start having supermarket variety in a small village without a supermarket. Okay? Same thing with all the the furniture and stuff like that. And each single village must have everything that it needs to sustain itself, and it's totally doable. But you cannot grow larger than that. Okay? Which, by the way, do not believe in this 15-minute, districts or cities or whatever they're trying to do. They're trying to imitate what I'm talking about. If the government is trying to say like, oh, we're gonna create a whole holistic way of life, say no, thank you. They cannot do this. They will always corrupt it, and they will use your excitement about this stuff, and you think, oh no, maybe government is now on my side. They will never be, never be. Do not believe that, okay? Do not believe corporations. Do not believe banks. Do not believe governments. They're done. They run, and they're gonna run everything into the ground. So people with desire for better life must start from each single individual. You have to be sustainable as individual. You have to be sustainable as a family. Then you can have sustainable household. Then you can have sustainable neighborhood. Then you have sustainable village. And those villages can connect with each other through the technology that is a non-corporate driven, just a certain type of internet protocol that allows only P2P type of applications and connections. Does not allow any government, does not allow any corporations, nothing. It's just person to person. That's it. Because you don't need intermediary, which brings me to the point. One of the points that you have to do is cut all the intermediaries as much as possible. All the gatekeepers, cut them out. Little by little. You have to start moving towards that direction, man. And then your life is gonna get better as whoever's gonna stay in the system. Their life is gonna get worse and worse and worse. And if you're gradually getting out of it, your life is gonna get better, better, and better. As an example, like Odyssey.com, I often talk about it because I really love the concept. It's basically a blockchain-driven type of application. Does exact same job as YouTube, but with no corporation. There is no corporation. It's called LBRY, library type of protocol, and it connects person to person, and the value that you create, you have for yourself. Right? That is sometimes people call Web 3.0. That application is part of Web 3.0. And so when you have this type of internet protocol and all these villages connected, you have even stronger backup now, right? So now you have communism at the household level, socialism at the neighborhood level, and now you can get into the capitalism game between the villages and start trading. And now you can gain capital if you want to gain capital, right? To each single village can be focused on a certain type of project, maybe an explosion of art or explosion of science or whatever. Each single village can have their own little university where all these things can take place. Each single village should focus on, because then when there's such an abundance, what the people gonna do? They're gonna say like, well, let's create something awesome. And that's when the real advancement in science starts beginning, and advancement in art starts beginning. What we see now, we're stuck in dark ages, not because there's no capacity to develop the scientific knowledge. There's too much of it. It's actually capped now because There's two reasons. One reason is because it's just not enough consciousness to not to destroy ourselves with technologies that can be available. And another one is very popular, they say, is a threat to the national security. It's basically, it's a national insecurity. That, God forbid, the technology appears where it makes a lot of things obsolete. So we're gonna cling on this obsoleteness because right now we can get, addicted to that fucking shit. And so let's just not allow the technology that can revolutionize everything. And you can see with Terrence Howard and then this Weinstein guy, like there's two different. One is the example of leaping into another type of scientific civilization, and another one is shitting their pants, becoming obsolete, trying to keep their ego. All their life, all they did was been a tool, and they thought they're something else. They've just been intellectual tool, and the world is full of intellectual morons. Because if you have very well developed intellect and you're proud of it, you have pride of it, don't be proud of it. You're a tool. That's all you are. You don't have capacity for inventing. You still live in fear of someone who comes along and makes you obsolete, all your 40-50 years of life obsolete. Do you have balls to admit that you wasted your life because now it's all obsolete? And if you don't have balls to do that, then get off the pot, man. You can't take the heat, get the fuck out of the kitchen. So you see that happening. But anyway, this is the breaking point. But at the same time, is a beautiful opportunity to something new to be born. As I always like to use the caterpillar and the butterfly metaphor. What happens right now is pretty natural. But you got to choose, are you going to stay the caterpillar or the butterfly? Because when the caterpillar cell starts morphing to the butterfly cells, they create a barrier. Because if caterpillar cells come across the butterfly cells, they try to destroy them. Okay? This is why butterfly cells need to connect with the butterfly cells and create a boundary against the caterpillar cells. Meaning you have to do everything without them reaching you and touching you. You know, for example, if you have cryptocurrency and you have your own keys, you have your own passport, okay, then they cannot touch that. But if you don't have that, and if you keep everything in the bank, it's very touchable. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that necessarily is going to happen, but that's still being as a part of the whole world. I'm not saying right now that immediately just close all your bank accounts and start dealing with crypto, but I'm saying start building bridges, you know? Yeah, and even fascism, you can incorporate the fascism. Fascism is great at producing something. You need protocols, you need structure. Fascism is great at producing something. And which, by the way, you know, I'm talking about this type of structure, this type of society, which is natural. And each single village has its own governance, right? But there's no one at the top. Each single village connecting with the other ones will create a self-governing type of society. Because the motherfuckers at the top is the ones that are really ruining it. If you cut the head, it's just like, you know, the spider and the starfish. If you cut the head off, well, I don't really cut the head off, just don't have anything at the top of the head, there's no one to corrupt. Because what is there to corrupt once you figure out the principles of nature, right? They never change. You don't need a person to say like, oh, it's gonna work like this. No, they're universal. They never change. So you keep them steady, and that's what can help us with that is the protocols. This thing is with the Bitcoin, right? Nobody governs Bitcoin. It's a protocol, and because it's built on the principles that are universal, it doesn't have to be changed. Everything else has to change, a little bit, but the principles never change. You cannot, you know. So then you say like, well, nobody's governing Bitcoin. How is this is possible? That's how it's possible because really, what is a self-governed um, concept, and it's if you really want to look deeper, you'll find that it's a protocol that's universal and it never changes. It's a code. You see, so that code that is written, that is you can call it sacred code, divine code, whatever, based on the true principles of nature, which in Bitcoin case, energy and time is value in this world. So it will never lie to you. You will always need time and energy to produce Bitcoin. Without getting too much into this subject, same way, this type of society could be run by the protocol as well, at the highest level. Not the person, but a protocol that is universal and never changing. So no one's gonna start fucking with it. It's uncorruptible. Like you cannot corrupt the value, because if you want to fuck the country over, you open like a Federal Reserve and centralize the banking. And the moment you do that, it's done. The country is zombified. It's on the verge to collapsing. And then for some reason there's unnecessary suffering all around, and nobody knows what it stemmed from, because the corruption of the value itself. So that's my suggestion is, don't have the head. There is no one world government. What is a one world government? Is the code of nature. That's what will govern the world, not the person. I would not trust myself to govern the world either. I would trust myself to write the code that is universal and say, don't, no matter how much I want to change this code, I can't, because it's universal. And then you can play your ruler roles on a smaller scale when you are not danger to the entire economy. If you fuck up government in your little village, there's thousands of other villages that are still running. And very quickly, obviously, you're gonna rule your authority. You're gonna lose your authority in this village because you're fucking it over. Someone else gonna come around and make it right. So you see, there's a combination of the most ancient way of life, which was already tested and proven, in a tribal way of living. However, of course, that has its drawbacks. Okay. And of course, this super modern way of living, which has all the technology and everything, but nobody's happy. People may be living in ancient times short lives, but they were all happy. I shouldn't say all happy, but I said like I can't say with confidence that the tribal life was predominantly emotionally, psychologically healthy. They didn't have depressions and anxieties. That's all I'm saying. So that's good, right? Like, it's all part of the nature. But if you incorporate the newest things, the technology, you have something in between. The extreme of one end and the extreme on another one, you meet something in the middle and you can create something amazing and beautiful. But you have to use both principles, the natural principles and technological principles, and you have to marry those two. It's like the heart and the mind have to be at complete balance. If it's all the heart, then there's a problem. If it's all the mind, then there's a problem. And what's happening right now, these structures, they want to create all the mind. That's tyranny. You have to meet it in a balance. And the fear is what's stopping. Like people who running the countries can easily say, let's reform it, but they don't want to, man. Who would want to let go of their power? So if they've enjoyed it for so many years, they don't want it. Of course, it's an illusion of power. There's no value in it, but still, it's their illusion, it's their addiction. This is why I'm not counting on them, uh, backing down. But I'm counting that they're going to be shrinking like that caterpillar. There's more and more cells growing and turning into a butterfly, and there's less and less caterpillar cells left. And eventually, guess what happens? Most of the caterpillar cells die out. Don't be the caterpillar cell, okay? And at the very end, there's an interesting thing happens too, because some caterpillar cells join the butterflies at the very end. But don't be caterpillar cell, period. Make a move. And maybe in the next one I'll create another video how exactly that can be done. How cutting all the intermediaries, taking care of your food sustainability, cutting out all the advertising, cutting out all the subscriptions, corporations, all that stuff, cutting out. And I'm not saying that you have to cut down on entertainment. You can still have a good entertainment where you still don't, it's just restructuring your own life. And the only thing that's keeping you from doing it's fear. You may think like, well, I have a pretty good life right now. Right now is good. So why do it? Don't skate where the puck is at. Skate where it's going to be. It's difficult to actually merge all the concepts in 20 minutes. I'm already at 30-minute mark. So, if you are capable of moving towards the rural areas, countryside, nowadays, most of the time you don't have to go to the office. You can work from your laptop anywhere with the internet connection. Make this move, man. And there's so many more benefits that are not immediately obvious. Like, of course, you would feel the contrast of what was like living in a city, all the constant noise and distraction and the peace of the countryside. Your mind changes and you start having better ideas, and what I'm saying, like it's a little change that can cascade into massive benefits. And this all can be done without fighting. This is how we win without fighting. There is no opposition to that. No one's gonna obstruct you from building your own homestead. No one's gonna obstruct you from using applications that are peer-to-peer. No one's gonna obstruct you, see, because they don't believe that that people are gonna do this. They believe that they have such a strong control over their minds that that is that people cannot gain their own self-authority. And maybe they're right on a majority of cases, so which is okay, fine. Let them have the caterpillar cells. We all know how it's going to end, but no one can prevent you from being a butterfly cell. No fighting, no conflicts, nothing. just pure awesomeness. I like to call it holistic society. I don't know if it's gonna catch on, but when you start doing this and creating these types of rules and principles of life at your own household, start there. If you do it this way, you're already part of it. It has to be applied on the smallest level, and then grow from there, connect with other homesteads, and that's it, man. Like, life is not that difficult, and if you follow these principles and follow these rules, it reduces the conflict, reduces all the problems. The solutions are you know are easy to have. The only thing that we still need the so-called system for is technology, right? That's why that needs to shrink all the way into just hardware production. Hardware production is fine, but it cannot have the software control. If you control the software, the control of the mind. That's also a natural principle that has been broken. In the universe, information is flowing freely. No one's controlling it. So if someone decides to control information and play that game, they break the law of the universe. They make accrue a lot of money, but their level of consciousness is super low. And then you have intellectual morons like Bill Gates and the like. Consciousness is super, super low. Intellect is really high. They should never have accrued that much wealth because they have not created a real value. They just controlled information, the licensing, whatever. You can kind of see that they're not really creating any value. Selling something that's already done is not creating any value. It's controlling information, and that's the main principle of nature is broken, and that breeds problems. And that's where you have them in a position of power and authority telling you to to use something that is experimental and whatnot, right? Like, and they believing that they're saving the world. See, that's the consequence of breaking the law of the nature. It's not worth it, man. It's not even fun for the people who are in control of it. Anyway, that's enough for today. So the main message was start preparing, start moving, start making changes, little ones. Even if you can don't drink bottled water, man. Get your own water. As much as possible, start getting food from local growers directly, not from the markets and not even the supermarkets, from the ranchers. You can see what they're growing right off the tree, and cut out all the middlemen. You don't need it, right? We have technologies now. Like, you can the rancher himself can start getting lots of clients and not really need to do anything. Have one guy who distributes everything, and so instead of being so undercut by these fucking corporations and them taking 60% of the profit, now you can have 100% of the profit, or you end up buying something that is way cheaper from them. So everybody wins. No need for this, like the whole retail thing. Everything can be replaced by technology right now, by the simple application that is not run by anybody. So what the fuck are we doing? Hypnotized in the same rhythm, all my food is gonna be my homegrown food, and in the meantime, if I don't have it, I'm gonna get the local ranchers. So that's enough for today. See you in the next one.